All right, welcome to Hunting Illinois. We're here tonight in Dan's basement. So this is going to be our first live podcast. The other ones have been on Zoom, if you haven't been able to tell. So we're looking forward to this one. And so we got Dan, Adam, and Curtis with us, and myself, Jason. And we're going to be going over the turkey hunting and getting excited for the turkey season. Kind of talking about the workshops we have coming up and our schedule coming here. And but first, we're going to talk to Dan about some updates he has.
Yeah, so we just kind of want to touch base on a couple news items, and we think this is going to be kind of a new recurring portion of the podcast. You know, just the first few minutes highlight some of the more important and kind of new events that have kind of come out in terms of Illinois hunting and Illinois outdoors. So kind of the first thing I wanted to touch base on today was Illinois DNR released their preliminary total of deer harvest for the 2021 and 2022 season. And at first glance, it's a pretty drastic decrease from the year prior. 2019 and 2020, we harvested about 162,000 during the total season, and this year we were at about 147,000. So you can see that's a pretty drastic decrease. But I kind of want to point out a few things. Obviously, last year was a unique year, as we all know, with COVID. So people did have a lot more opportunity as people, a lot of events were canceled, school events were canceled, sports were canceled. So a lot of people just had more free time. So I think we all kind of expected to see that little bump up. But one thing I want to point out is, obviously it was a decrease from last year, but it is pretty much where we've, really hung out in the past, really since the 2012 EHD breakout. Prior to that, we would harvest about 180,000 per year. But with that really bad EHD breakout in 2012, we saw a significant reduction in the overall landscape, just the number of deer out there. There was a lot of deer mortality from EHD. And so we've typically hovered around 145 to 155,000 harvested deer per season. And we're pretty much right in line with that at about 147,000. And again, obviously, this is not the full report. When that full report comes out, we'll kind of dive a little bit more in depth and kind of talk about what some of these numbers mean and how, us as hunters might view these numbers and how we might even use some of these numbers in kind of our hunt planning process.
Cool. Just for people who might be new to hunting, Dan, what was the EHD breakout, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so EHD stands for epizootic hemorrhagic disease. And it's essentially a disease that is caused by midges. And so these are little insects that live in mud. And unfortunately, years of drought can be very detrimental and very impactful for these midges. They can really concentrate in these areas of stagnated water where you don't have a lot of flowing water. And those are typically found during drought conditions. And so that can really cause some of these midge populations to increase, which then leads to bigger EHD outbreaks.
Now, this is the same thing that the old timers call blue tongue, right?
Yep.
Yeah, blue tongue. Gotcha.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so again, that was a pretty big mortality event during that 2012 season. That's kind of, we used to be hovering over 180,000 harvested per year, but ever since then, we've kind of dropped down to that kind of median area between 145,000 and 155,000. But if you look at the overall trends, you can start to see the population is starting to rebound from those effects of EHD. And kind of in preparation for this discussion, I kind of looked at some of the numbers that DNR released during that 2012 year, and they had something like 3,000 reported calls of landowners finding EHD in like 87 counties. And
Wow.
those are just numbers unheard of. I remember at that time, I was actually a farm bill biologist. And I talked to one landowner, and he found over 60 deer on his 150 acre tract. And so you can see it just decimates. And very often with EHD, obviously, like I said, it's transmitted by these midges. And so very commonly you'll find deer deceased by waters. They start to get an infection, they start to kind of go towards the water. And so it's very common to find lots of deer carcasses along creeks, along streams, along rivers during big EHD breakouts. But the good thing about EHD is the midges, once we have a real good frost event, it basically ends the EHD breakout right away. It kills off all those insects and kind of stops the spread right there. And I should just kind of mention, just for clarity's sake, it does not have an impact on humans. It is not always fatal. There are some effects of livestock, and so they do obviously recommend livestock and ranchers to kind of monitor the area. So if you're ever out while you're hunting and you come across a deer carcass, you'll notice in DNR's communications and in the digest, it says, hey, if you come across a deer carcass, report it, and that's so they can kind of continue to monitor these EHD effects.
Wow. Do you know by chance if they have any reporting right now about hunter trip taken? Was there less hunting going on, or was it what was going?
Yeah, so we don't have that data yet. We
Yeah.
basically all they've released is kind of this preliminary harvest number of 147,000. But I expect they'll release their full harvest report. It usually comes out about this time, so I would expect to see it in the next week or two.
Cool. What do they even have in terms of effort data? I mean, you're just talking about the survey and finding out what percentage of people actually hunted.
Mm-hmm.
But like that survey doesn't ask about number of days or number of hours in the field, does it?
Right. Now, the harvest report that DNR produces does not. But the Human Dimensions Lab at the University of Illinois, they do their hunter harvest reports, and they actually do ask questions like that, and then they'll kind of extrapolate it through, various statistical processes to come up with an overall kind of estimated effort for the state.
Nice. Yeah, 'cause that's the hardest part of data to get. Like getting the harvest is just one piece of the puzzle.
Sure.
But if you really want to know what's going on, you got to have harvest and effort.
Yep. And I expect that's what we'll see, looking from last year to this year, is effort was just sky high last year. And I think that led to an increased harvest, and we kind of reverted back to the mean a little bit this year. So nothing to be concerned about. We're right in line where we typically are, and where I would assume most biologists would have expected us to fall.
Cool.
Any idea when the more complete report will be available?
Yeah, usually it's about this time to mid-March, so I would expect it to come out in the next week or two. I do know there's lots of DNR is obviously short-staffed and time is a constraint, so they timing might be a little variable, but typically we get it in kind of mid-March.
Cool. Before getting into turkey hunting, does anyone have any other updates they want to give?
Well, I know you guys saw, it's the big story that's been going around. A black eye for hunters, really. One that I think a lot of us probably knew was coming, but the nearly 50% of all bald eagles are suffering from lead poisoning, and that's basically being traced right back to hunters and anglers. And wow, yeah, that's a black eye for hunters for sure, and something that I think hunters as a group need to sort of take on and do something about, because I mean, obviously we've made these changes for waterfowl, right? You have to use non-toxic shot for waterfowl, and surely that helped. But obviously it's not doing enough. We know bald eagles are scavengers, so they're eating on gut piles all over the country. They're finding small mammals that may have been hit. I mean, yeah, this is a legitimate concern, and think about how this looks to people who aren't hunters. Maybe they're not anti-hunters either. They're just kind of somewhere in the middle. But seeing that 50% of the national bird is suffering from lead poisoning, which is a horrible neurological condition, I mean, that tugs at their heartstrings.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that pattern with the DDT and everything else. I mean, their eggs were all
Deformed and
thin
crunch.
and so I mean, yeah, there's definitely going to be hopefully some movement on that.
Yeah, and we've seen other states basically take a full lead ammunition ban. I know California recently has basically just no lead at all. Even if you're rifle hunting and you're out hunting big game, you have to use, in a lot of cases, non-toxic shot. And obviously out there was for the California condor, not necessarily for the bald eagle, but I think the same concept kind of follows along.
For sure. I personally switch to all non-toxic ammo when I'm hunting almost entirely. I still got lead 22 ammo and stuff like that, but my deer ammo is full copper, and I'm trying to go that way, and it's also for human health reasons, because we also see that this lead fragments when it goes into the game, and you're gonna eat that. You're gonna slowly ingest that over your life, and I eat a lot of wild game. I don't want to turn into the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland over here.
Yeah, those it adds up over time. It certainly does.
Sure.
Those heavy metals are really nothing to mess with, and I think we've seen that with a few of the changes that DNR has made, especially in Illinois. I know a lot of the the hand trap ranges that they have at their DNR sites, they're starting to shift those to require non-toxic shot. And I foresee that continuing not only in Illinois, but across the country as research like this comes out and really shows. I mean, we've known lead is detrimental to ecology, to water, to everything for a long time. And I think it's time to really come together as a group and move forward with that knowledge and do something about it.
Sure. So many reasons too, the human health aspect, the wildlife aspect. And I mean, now they can make rounds that are just as good as lead and they're non-toxic. And I mean, maybe it's a couple dollars more, but as more and more are made, that price will go down too. Because
Right.
it won't be competing with lead. So for me, it's a no-brainer, but it's definitely something I think the hunting community is going to have to address because it's a big story right now.
It is, and I think it's really impactful too. There's a large social stigma about the use of steel. We all know that steel performs vastly differently than lead, and anybody who tells you they perform the same is out to lunch. They do perform differently. It's just about knowing those limitations, knowing the adjustments that you need to make as a hunter and as a shooter to kind of match that same efficiency that you get with lead with some of the non-toxic alternatives.
Mm-hmm. If you really want to increase your range, pony up and buy the bismuth.
Yeah. Technology's come a long way. There's a lot of really good kind of metal alloys out there that perform, vastly better than lead and steel.
$2 a shell, though.
That's a bit much.
No, thank you.
Hey, if we all buy it and get it down to $1.50 a shell. So.
I mean, you've seen me shoot at doves. We don't need to.
Only shooting ducks on the water now, guys. Gotta be efficient.
Yeah. But we want to do kind of a deep dive on this conversation of this kind of, just lead toxicity and lead ammunition and kind of just talk about the pros and cons and what we can do as hunters. So we'll have an episode coming out here shortly. We're going to really dive deep into this news item and this topic and hope to provide some really good commentary.
Ooh, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I like that.
Enticing.
Yeah.
Maybe get a special guest or two.
I'd be okay with that.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
man.
All right, guys. So those are the updates we got right now. Moving on, we're going to talk turkey, I guess. I was told myself I was going to say talk turkey this whole time, and I just said it right out of the gate. All right, so we're going to talk about
trademarked.
I don't know. It's like it's on a shirt somewhere for sure. All right, so let's talk turkey hunting.
Now you know Martin Shkreli $12.
All right, so it's coming up. We got our schedules posted on the website. So this podcast, we're not going to go too deep dive into what we're going to cover at our workshops or on our webinars. And we're just going to kind of keep it light and just talk a little bit about our experiences turkey hunting and why we might like it or not like it. I don't know how you guys feel about it. But so does anyone go first? Talk about turkey hunting.
Let's have the turkey slayer himself, Adam.
I wasn't going to throw him on the bus, but I was looking at him. I know. We all have kind of our specialties, and Adam is kind of our turkey hunter right now. And you can talk a little bit about turkey hunting, Adam. Go for it. I know you mentor a lot of people. Maybe mention that and what that experience is like.
Yeah, the past couple of years, I've definitely enjoyed taking out new hunters out into the turkey woods. I'd say turkey hunting is my favorite hunting right now. Just
So interactive.
Yes, that's definitely my favorite part of it, just because you're actually able to talk back and forth with the turkey.
And it's a nice time of year.
Yes.
You're not sitting
Yes.
there in 20-degree weather,
Yeah.
just shivering.
I bumped into some mosquitoes, though. I'm not going to get into it right now. But oh my Lord, you get into it next to a swamp in Pennsylvania in May.
Sounds like Apache's just taking
Yeah,
off.
we ran out of there. We heard some gobbles, but we're like, I ain't worth this.
Ain't worth-
It ain't
yeah.
worth West Nile right now. We gotta get going. East Coast has all the worst viruses on mosquitoes. Jeez.
But yeah, it is definitely my favorite. Like Dan said, definitely best time of the year. It's, sweatshirt weather. You're comfortable, not sweating all the time. Wake up, it's pretty chilly, and then during the day, it's good napping weather for napping under the tree, especially when the action's slow.
Oh, yes.
Don't forget, you get to look for the morel mushrooms,
Yes,
too.
I was just gonna touch on that.
Added bonus.
Yep. Turkey or wild turkey and morel together paired in a dish is that's definitely one of my favorite wild game meals, foraging meals to put together in the springtime.
Not quite surf and turf, but it's like fowl and fungi.
Yeah, you can call it
I
that.
like
Fowl-
that.
Fowl and fungi.
Add that to the Instagram. There,
Yeah.
man.
But yeah, so here in the next couple weeks, I'll definitely start getting out there and start listening, going in the evenings to try to just figure out what the turkeys are doing. We still probably have a little bit of time before they break out from their wintering groups. During the winter, they like to herd up together and be in a flock and basically move food source to food source. And then as the weather gets better, they like to disperse because they know it's time for breeding season. So I'm definitely going to be hitting the woods here shortly, probably mid-March here, and start listening to where they're gobbling in the evening, flying up to the roost. So that'll give me a good pinpoint of kind of where to start my more in-depth scouting. So yeah, it's definitely coming up quick, but
I can't wait.
This is my favorite time of the year. I love deer hunting too. Love all the other hunting, kind of fills in the gap throughout the year, but deer hunting's a lot of work. Turkey hunting is basically like hunting vacation for me. So,
Nice.
So with going out with new people, what are some of the learning curves that you see a lot of new hunters kind of don't understand before they go out, or what's any surprises that they've been hitting, or
Anybody swallow their diaphragm call?
no one has swallowed their diaphragm call, but a couple things that I always like to point out to new people is I always tell them where to aim on the turkey, which I need to practice myself because last year I had some missing that I did. But I always tell everybody to aim at the turkey where the feathers meet the neck. That's kind of the one big tip. And the other big tip is to never point. Everybody likes to point at where the turkey's coming from.
Oh, it's over there.
Yeah, it's over there. And turkeys have very good eyesight. So that's kind of the one thing you always want to pay attention to. If you're hunting with somebody or taking somebody new, minimize the pointing. Just talk softly. Turkeys won't pick up on that quite as much. So that's kind of the two learning curves. I've definitely had to get on some people about that. Cody Fetzner.
And name drop.
oh man,
We can edit that out.
awesome, man. Anyone else? I mean, he probably
Yeah,
he had a lot of
I
key
can
points,
certainly
but
jump in.
we
Yeah.
can echo a little bit here.
Yeah, so I have an interesting background with wild turkey. One of my first jobs outside of college, I graduated with a degree in wildlife, was working as a turkey technician. And so that was kind of how I really developed a love for turkey. Growing up, I didn't really spend too much time turkey hunting. You know, my family was big anglers. My dad wasn't a big hunter. He occasionally went upland hunting and that sort of thing. But turkey was never really something I ever experienced. I had seen turkeys, but I never went turkey hunting. But after that job, and trapping turkeys and tracking them with GPS collars and just monitoring their behavior and seeing them go through the normal stages and their breeding behavior is fascinating. I started to develop a real affinity for turkey. And as I started to kind of progress as a turkey hunter, just like Curtis mentioned a few minutes ago, having that conversation with a bird there is something special. And I always like to describe turkey hunting as more of an art than it is a science. And I think that's what really appeals to me about turkey hunting. Now, I will say there are some things I hate about turkey hunting, specifically is drawing tags. Obviously, in this state, it's fairly difficult. I'm on my second year of not drawing a tag, so it is difficult. But again, I think it's worth it. And it's definitely an activity that can be very fruitful and very, very engaging. It's very active. You're very mobile. I like to describe it as the complete opposite of deer hunting.
And we're all public land hunters, so when you say
Right,
draw on
right.
tag, you're
Yeah.
drawing a tag for public land sites that
Sure,
are specific
yeah.
for that site.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep. So
And you mentioned turkey trapping.
Mm-hmm.
You got to tell us how you trap a turkey.
Interesting. So we would essentially with this study, we were looking at the nest success and also mortality events of wild turkey. This was actually a study in Missouri. It's still ongoing, I believe. If you're up near the Mark Twain Lake area, was kind of where my research station was at. We banded and tagged a lot of wild turkey, and so there's turkeys out there running around with leg bands. That's not something that many people get to say they harvested a bird with a leg band. So if you're looking for that, Mark Twain Lake in Missouri. But yeah, so trapping was a really interesting activity. We would kind of go in, obviously scout out the area just like we would if we were hunting it, figure out what areas they're feeding in regularly, and we would set out a bait pile. And we used cracked corn was kind of our primary food source for bait. And we'd have essentially a giant net. It was about 60 feet long, by about 50 feet wide, and it was attached to explosive charges with rockets. And so once those turkeys were on the bait pile, we'd have to make sure that all of their heads were down, obviously, so you don't hit them with the net as the rockets are flying over them. And right when all their heads are down, you'd hit the ignition, fire off those rockets, and it launches this giant net up into the air, and that net just kind of slowly falls on top of the birds and brings them to the ground. And then you get to have the fun task of trying to wrestle 20 toms out of a giant net. I have a pretty gnarly scar in my hand from getting a nice spur right through the palm.
Oh, so that's just like rocket nets for ducks.
Exactly,
I
same
always
concept.
worked with ducks and geese,
Yep.
but see, no spurs.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
no scar. Got to pick the bird with the dagger on it.
Yeah, I know.
Man. How about you, Curtis? You got any turkey hunting history there?
Well, yeah, I'd definitely echo a lot of the things Adam said. I love turkey hunting because of how interactive it is. It's definitely reminds me of elk hunting. Being from the Midwest, not something that I've got a chance to do yet. Hopefully someday. But you watch them on TV and calling at these animals. Animals call back and they come, and just that whole interaction is so cool. And I mean, I'd say duck hunting is probably my favorite, and you get to call with ducks, but it's more of a one-way type of
Conversation,
communication, And with turkeys, it's back and forth, and not to mention morel mushrooms. I'm a big mushroom fan. Morel mushrooms are awesome. Beautiful time to be in the woods. Also, spring bird migration. And getting to see the birds in spring and all the songbirds, the neotropical migrants moving through is just awesome. And wow, and I gotta mention the really cool noise wild turkeys make. I think it's the lowest noise that you can find in nature in North America is the turkey drum. It's so hard you can't explain it to somebody who's never heard it because you can't explain it. I don't know. It's like
You more so
explaining a
feel
color.
it
Yeah,
than
you
you hear
feel
it.
It's like
It's
a,
almost
it's a
like
subwoofer
I was
coming
gonna
down
say
the
that
street.
it's almost a subwoofer with
Yeah.
no music. It's just like the vibration,
The air.
of- yeah.
And you can only hear it when it's real close, and sometimes you can like feel it before you hear it, and then once you hear it, that bird's almost in range. But you'll sometimes hear people call it like the spitting drum. So it'll be like, boom. And to me, it sounds like somebody's hitting like a 50-gallon drum with like a
Sure.
big,
Big
like
mallet,
A
yeah.
big
or
gong or
something.
something.
Yeah, and just a really cool sound, and one that happens all around us, but most people out there have never heard it in their whole life. Lowest sound in nature, really cool.
That is
What's not to
I'm glad
love
you
about
brought that up.
turkeys?
That's
That is definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
That gets the adrenaline going.
yes.
Yeah.
I've heard grouse do that before, and I know when you hear it, it's not as big as, I mean, turkeys are bigger, so it's probably deeper. But when you hear it the first time, you don't recognize it, and then it takes it a couple times, and you're like, oh man, what is that? And then you realize it's a bird off in the distance
That's
making
wild.
this same bass noise. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, man, coming from PA, I hunted turkey a couple times when I was younger. We had a private land that we had friends who had turkey around, and then eventually they moved away, so the turkey, not the friends. But but no, the turkeys moved off property and we couldn't get them to come back. So we kind of had our couple good seasons there, and then we just couldn't find them at all. And we were kind of stuck with that private land access. But I'm looking forward. I got a tag this year, so I'm looking forward to getting out for sure for the first time in about 10 years or so after turkey. So
Nice.
I'm really excited about it. I remember being a little kid. I mean, it's one of the funnest things. If you want to get a kid into
Yes.
hunting, take a kid turkey hunting, because I have vivid memories of my dad calling in turkeys, and even if you don't I'm just messing with them in the morning, just hearing them call at first light is intense and really gets the adrenaline going. And if you got a kid who wants to kind of, as soon as you get there, wants to leave, they're not going to want to leave on this one because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to bring up too that I kind of forgot to is there's something really special about listening to the woods wake up in spring.
Mm-hmm.
We've all fallen asleep with our windows open. You wake up to the birds chirping in spring, but there's just something really just ethereal and kind of cathartic being outside in the deep woods at sunrise during the spring. There's just so many different vocalizations. And like Curtis said, you have this big, neotropic migration coming through. So the warblers are coming through, and you're hearing different warbler songs mixed in with the big, deep, gobble of a turkey on the ridge. And there's just something really special about watching the sun come up and hearing all that while you're deep in the woods during the spring.
How could you sit at home and watch a TV when you could be watching that?
Yeah.
I tell you.
And then how green it is. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about memories now. So I got a couple memories. It was just one trout fishing in April in Pennsylvania. First day of trout season when I was a kid was first week of April, and the bird noises are one of the memories I have. I'm just sitting on the bank of the river waiting for 9 o'clock to roll around, even though it's 5 o'clock in the morning, to get your line wet, and you're sitting there listening to the birds coming to life, and I'll remember that forever. And then just how green the woods are in the spring too. I mean, if you're out there late season around here, because but when it rains, it's like you're in an Irish Spring commercial.
Yeah,
I mean, it is so green out compared to fall. I mean, it's just a completely different wood setup.
For sure, but the weeds haven't grown in yet, so like you can still pretty easily walk through the woods. It's not super weedy, but yeah, beautiful and green, and yeah, just right for finding those morel mushrooms.
That's right. Cool. All right, guys, anything else you want to add to this episode?
Yeah, the only big thing I kind of want to touch on is a few kind of, obviously we're going to dive into turkey as we progress, getting closer and closer to turkey season. But if you're starting to get prepared and starting to get your equipment, I highly, highly, highly recommend looking into a product called permethrin. It's a chemical that is very effective at keeping ticks off of you, and as we've seen in the past several years, there's more and more tick-borne illnesses that are starting to crop up, and it's starting to be a little bit more prevalent. And so I take a lot of care when I'm out turkey hunting, because that you're very often stuff starting to grow back, the ticks are out, and so I even go as far as taping with duct tape, taping my pant legs to my boots so that nothing can crawl up. But treating your clothes with permethrin, it's not like a DEET that you kind of spray on your skin and it kind of works that way. This is something you treat your clothes with, let it completely dry, but before you ever touch it, because it is very powerful chemical. So make sure to follow the label instructions. But if you're going to be out and about a lot during the spring, I highly recommend looking into permethrin.
Yeah, just watch out with that. Make sure you realize what you're buying, because in some bottles it comes as a concentrate, in some bottles it's ready to be put on your clothes. So
yeah. And do not treat your clothes indoors.
Yes.
When you spray them, go outdoors. If you have cats, you need to be especially careful. The chemical is very, very
Toxic.
Dangerous and toxic. Thank you. Toxic to cats. So if you do have cats, just take extra precaution.
Gotcha. Do not spray the cat.
Spray the cat.
But if you treat your clothes at the beginning of turkey season, theoretically it should be good for the whole season.
Yep, you're
right?
good. Yep.
Yeah, we'll have it on the bottle. It's good for a couple washes, I think.
Yeah,
even.
that's the nice thing, is that it lasts through a couple
washes. They're hunting.
I know. I don't know. I just rub mine in dirt and call it good.
I do, because I get poison ivy very bad, and that oil just seems to stick on clothes.
Yep. And I know you can also treat your car with that as well. So I mean, if you're putting game in your car, again, let it dry. Follow the instructions. Don't sit in your car after. Let it air out. Let it dry. Follow the instructions, as I said. But so that way you don't have ticks crawling around. If you have game in your car, especially like when deer season comes around, that's something you can think about too.
Yeah.
Because I definitely have picked up deer ticks in my car after having a deer in my car.
Yep. And permethrin's a really cool product. I don't think permethrin's the brand name. I think that's the actual chemical. But if you're ever out after you've treated your clothes and you watch ticks crawl up your pant legs, you'll basically watch them they'll make it, a few inches, and then they'll kind of get on their back legs and they'll just tip and fall right off. Yeah. And just like that, you have no ticks to worry about. It's a great product and definitely worth looking into.
Absolutely.
And pretty inexpensive. Last time I bought a bottle, it's like $7 or $8, but you can treat, multiple pieces of gear with that bottle.
Right.
Yeah, it works as mosquito spray too, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Just don't spray it on your skin.
Yes.
Or your cat.
Yeah, don't get that mixed up with the water bottle you have around the house. Make sure it doesn't scratch your
That's a real deterrent. You're not going to get in the fridge anymore, Fifi.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Dan, do you have the schedule pulled up at all about our workshops?
Yeah. So we've got quite a bit coming up. Obviously, we're getting geared up for turkey season, but we also have a couple events that are not necessarily geared towards turkey. So Curtis, do you kind of want to talk about a little bit about the Waterfall Id workshops that we have coming up?
Yeah, so in the spring, obviously, we're mostly talking turkey, but Saturday, March 19th, we're going to be at the Illinois River National Wildlife Refuge Complex, specifically Chautauqua and Imaquan National Wildlife Refuge. We're going to hold 2 waterfowl identification workshops, and these are going to be fun. You know, we're going to get the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff is going to go through a bunch of actual duck museum study skins.
Oh, cool.
So we're going to get to see, these birds in the hand before we go in the field. And we're going to be able to point out all these field marks. And, I mean, let's face it, waterfowl identification can be, it can be intimidating
Yeah.
for somebody
Oh, yeah.
new. I mean, that's a lot of different birds. But we're going to try to break it down simply. Show people how they can break ducks and geese into groups and make it a whole lot easier to make these successful identifications. And then we're going to go out into the field and do it ourselves. And we're going to be hitting the peak of migration, and who knows, we could even find something really cool, and we'll have to eBird that thing out, and then the whole
Birding community will come out.
There'll be people from England there tomorrow. You just watch. So.
Now, you were there last weekend, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there on Sunday, and holy cow, that place is loaded down with geese.
Nice.
So many geese that when I left, like the whole time I'm driving in my car, I can hear geese.
You're still hearing them?
Oh, yeah.
They're not there. It's phantom geese that live inside my brain after being surrounded by them for so long. But man, it was awesome.
That's cool.
I
got
have
up
that
there.
with turkeys in the spring too. I just hear gobbles in the
That's
middle of
good.
the night. Yeah.
The ghosts of turkeys past. No, it's a lot of birds there, and as the ice continues to melt, I think it's only going to get better and better. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to see some cool birds, and hopefully folks can come out and join us for that.
Nice. And in addition to that, we've also got a couple turkey workshops coming up. We have a few kind of in the Chicagoland area, but those have actually filled up rather quickly. And those are coming up this weekend and the following weekend.
Oh, we do have one more coming.
Correct. Yep. We have one more that we're working
Don't have
on the
the
final
details yet.
details. So check the website, follow us on social media, and you'll see that come through. But we're expecting that to kind of be, I think, early April, one of the weekends in early April.
Yeah, I think we're hoping for the first Saturday in April. May wind up being the second Saturday
Sure.
in April, but yeah, so just right before the season in the North Zone there.
Cool. And these workshops are, I think they're a lot of fun. Obviously, it's very hands-on. We're going to go over, turkey calling, turkey strategies. We're going to go over decoy placement, but I really like to dive deep into the ecology and the behavior of the species and how we can utilize that in our scouting and in our hunt planning and while we're out there hunting. And so we'll kind of do a real deep dive into some of the behavior, some of the vocalizations, and how you can use a lot of that information. But again, we're going to have a lot of hands-on activities too. We're going to bring some birds and show how to process, how to field dress the animal, so that when you do inevitably harvest your first turkey, you at least have a hands-on idea of some of the steps that you need to take.
And we should mention that's another way. We talked about all these ways that turkey's special. Another way is it's a large amount of white meat.
It is.
And there's not a whole lot of wild game you get that's white meat. And I mean, I'm a big fan of duck. I like dark meat, but certainly, at least for some folks, there's more things you can do with the white meat.
Sure.
Making your basic chicken strips, chicken nugget type dishes that people are very familiar with. You can do that with turkey, and so it's unique in that way too.
Certainly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're not able to come to the in-person workshops, we know obviously we try to host them across the state as much as possible, but we know people have time and travel constraints. So we also have a couple webinars that are upcoming where we're going to detail some of the same kind of thought processes and strategies and kind of how-tos that we do at the workshop. So the last week in March on Tuesday and Thursday, so that's March 29th and the 31st, we'll have Turkey Hunting 101, which will be on the Tuesday, and immediately following that will be Turkey Hunting 102 on Thursday. So those will, again, be really nice options for you to just kind of sit at home, learn some new information, ask a few questions, and just kind of engage with us and hopefully kind of learn something from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And then this will not be the last turkey-themed podcast. We have quite a few topics we're going to try to talk about this spring. And we also have is he the turkey manager? Or?
Yeah, so Luke Garver, he is the Wild Turkey Program Manager for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. He'll be joining us. I don't know if it'll be next episode or the following, but before turkey season, we're going to sit down and talk with him. Talk about kind of the forecast for turkey season. What was the nesting success like last year? What do the population numbers look like? And a few things like that. So it'll be a nice deep dive into the turkey. So
yeah, and it'd be nice to catch up with him. We talked to him in 2020, right after the COVID, and we talked to him I think in August 2020, and talked to him about kind of that COVID year and how weird that was. So that's on our YouTube channel as well. So if you want to go and kind of prep for it, you can see what Luke looks like and kind of see what the Zoom call was. That was a really good one. We kind of went through some frequently asked questions, and he answered a lot of them for us. But so that's kind of what we have coming up. It's going to be a busy spring.
Yeah, and we really look forward to seeing you all out there. Obviously, that's what we're here for, is to help you as much as possible. So if you have any questions, or if you want to email the show, suggest a topic, suggest a segment for us, maybe send us a news item that you come across, feel free to reach out to us at learntohuntpodcast@gmail.com.
There you go.
Oh, and don't forget your stories. We want to hear their stories,
stories and pictures.
Yeah, if we got people out there that go out and get their first turkey or get their first anything, those are great stories to share with us. And who knows, if you're up for it, maybe we'll listen to your story on the podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I know last year we had a participant who was kind enough to post on our Facebook that they got their first turkey through just going to our webinars.
Yeah, we had a couple of those last year,
Yep.
I remember.
Yeah, so that's awesome. We want you guys to be successful, and gals. I think that was actually a woman. So
It was, yeah.
So that's awesome. So please share your stories.
Yeah,
it makes us feel like
and again, we're here to
doing
help.
something. Yeah. All right. Any other last updates before we get into critter trivia?
I believe March 8th, the rest of the turkey permits for this spring go on sale. Again, these are going to be just over-the-counter turkey permits. Most likely all of the site-specific public land turkey permits are sold out. Mm-hmm. But if you guys go to our Facebook, we have definitely a few posts where it gives you the link to look at all of the leftover tags. So by this time, again, most of the public land tags are sold out. So most of these are going to be private land county tags, but those do go on sale March 8th.
And I will say, just to kind of clarify a little bit, Adam, there are a few sites in the state that allow you to use a county level turkey tag. So if you have your copy of the Illinois DNR Digest handy, or you can pull it up online, if you go to the very back, there's kind of an appendix that shows all of the different sites. And if you first look at it, it's a very cumbersome looking table with just X's and rows and lines everywhere. But if you just look at it for a few minutes, it shows exactly what type of permit you need for different public land sites. And there are a few across the state that allow you to hunt with just a county level tag. So if you've been unsuccessful in the lottery, maybe you waited too long, you just forgot, that's an option. Another good option to look into is the Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois. That's a piece of national forest, and so it does not have site-specific county or site-specific tags, but it does operate on county level tags, and so that again maybe something worth looking into if you missed the lottery or you didn't draw.
And if you have any questions, again, message us, email us.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
We'll
the Shawnee's a
get back to you.
gorgeous place.
Dang, go down to the national forest with a tent, do a little turkey camp.
You've got over 100,000 acres at your disposal down there, so you can. There's a lot of turkeys down there.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
All right, guys. Now it's time for critter trivia. Curtis, what was our answer from last episode?
Yes, well, last episode we had a little bit of a different question where we played a lovely wildlife noise for you all and asked what critter was making it. So we're going to go ahead and play that noise for you one more time. All right. So you guys know what it is? Some of you have heard this, right?
Certainly.
It's an elk. I'm sticking with elk, right? Is that what we're going with? It's an Illinois animal, right? Elk.
So close. Northern bobwhite quail. That's actually a covey call, a regroup call. If you ever bust up a covey and stand there, like if you hadn't shot, you just jumped up a covey, they'll start making that call, and if you repeat it, they'll kind of reconvene their covey right near you, and it's pretty cool to watch. But bobwhite quail, really cool bird, delicious little game bird.
They are. Oh.
Not near as many of them as there used to be because of changes in habitat mostly. But if you can find some pockets, a lot of fun to get on a quail hunt still.
And in Illinois, like you said, their population is down a little bit, but you can find them in some, especially southern Illinois. Sorry, they're a little bit more abundant as you kind of get central and northern Illinois. You're out of their range in a lot of areas, but really cool bird, really awesome sound. And if you've never actually understood what a covey is basically a group of quail. And the cool thing about watching a covey, especially at night, is when they all kind of sleep together, the quail will kind of get in this tight little circle, about 12 to 15 inch diameter circle, and put their little tiny butts together, and that's how they sleep, and it forms this little covey. And the cool thing is that it allows them to thermoregulate a little bit, keeps them warm, but it also allows them to be able to detect predators fairly well. But it's such a cool sound when you hear it, especially because it's normally right first sun. Right before the sunrise really starts kicking up, they'll start covey calling off the roost, and it's just really something special hearing that in the dark. It's cool. It's kind of eerie the first time you hear it if you don't know what you're listening for.
So what's the traditional bobwhite call for? Like, what is that? Yeah, so what if that's the covey call? That's not quite what that sounded like.
Right.
Do you know when they use that?
Yeah, so that's kind of their springtime mating call.
Okay.
Especially the males, they'll get up on a fence post and just hammer that. And that's obviously why they're named Bob White. If Curtis can whistle it again, you can almost hear it says Bob White. And that's kind of where the name come from, is it's just trying to pronounce what their call is. But that's kind of the main call that most people think of when they hear of Bob White, and that's that kind of springtime male kind of breeding type vocalization.
That's also my main call when I'm in the woods. If I'm trying to alert my presence to another hunter, I will let out a Bob White, because that gets everybody's attention, but it sounds natural enough that you shouldn't be scaring away any critters, but let somebody know where you are.
Sure. And a real cool thing about the covey call is the state, biologists and a lot of even birders, they do covey point counts, and it's a way that they can estimate the population, especially looking at trends over time, looking at habitat usage, and they'll basically go out to a single spot, and they'll hit that same spot year after year after year and stand there and hear where they hear coveys at. And so they'll pinpoint, okay, I heard a covey in this direction, I think it's there. And then it's just this real cool way to track population levels, looking at it just kind of, their vocalizations. It's cool science.
Just be cautious if you hear the old Bob White call in the city. Probably not a quail.
Probably not.
Starlings will commonly, they're mimics, so they will commonly mimic that. And even outside my house, sometimes I'll hear it out my window. It's a perfect, and for a second you're,
oh my God,
no,
yeah.
It's a starling, because then 2 seconds later you'll hear a red-tailed hawk, and then 17 other birds all coming from the starling. So not all Bob Whites come from quail.
Yeah.
Some come from some come from me when I'm walking in the woods.
Oh man, I really think quail hit peak popularity in the '90s from Doug.
Oh yeah.
Little
Quail man.
Feel. Yeah, that's the first time I ever heard a quail call. was Doug on Nickelodeon. But,
a real innovator. First person to ever wear a belt on his head. True story.
Wow.
True story.
But speaking of quail, that was actually the first animal I ever hunted. The first animal I ever legally harvested was a quail, and I've always had a special affinity for them. Unfortunately, their population is in a pretty drastic decline. There's a lot of groups doing a lot of good work restoring that habitat, but hopefully we kind of see that population rebound over time. But we'll
Bring
see.
back the fence row.
Yes. Yeah, there's what I forget who the organization is, but one of their slogans, it's not Pheasants or Quail Forever, it's another smaller organization, but it's something like quail habitat is rough around the edges. And you basically just described that. You know, they love that woody, shrubby habitat that used to be dominant in this landscape. You know, when we had these 20, 30, 40 acre farms that were all separated by fence rows and hedgerows, that's where quail thrived, in that thick woody cover along fences. But as we've kind of made this monoculture of just basically a corn desert, we no longer have that kind of significant woody structure that quail need. And pheasants, you know, they don't need as much woody cover as quail do. They can thrive in a lot of just big grassland areas where quail can't. They really need that woody cover component of their habitat. And unfortunately, that's kind of lacking on the landscape.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, this episode's question is going to be turkey themed, given the episode we've had so far. So, male turkeys have a body part on them. And so this body part has been shown that the size of it helps dictate if they're going to be successful at mating and also if they're going to be successful in fighting off other male turkeys. So what's the name of that body part? And this is the only body part that's found on male turkeys, not on female turkeys at all. And a hint is that I have a piece of clothing I use for my Springer Spaniel's ears to hold his ears back when I have him eat dinner. So this shares the name of this piece of clothing I found on Etsy.
That's a hint.
That's a hint. Yeah. So it's turkey. It's a double. So it's turkey anatomy. Also, field dog question. What is the name of the piece of clothing you put on a dog's ears to keep their ears clean?
I like it.
So there you go. So
I think
what's
we
that?
need one more hint. Is this body part fleshy or is it turgid?
Yes.
Fleshy. Okay.
It is definitely fleshy.
All right. So yeah, I mean, you guys it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. They all know what it is already. So yeah. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. I'm happy we did a live one. This was fun, guys. I appreciate you being here in Dan's basement. So, AKA the podcast.
It's not as creepy
studio.
as it sounds.
No, it's we're good. It's the studio. It's what podcasters call the studio,
Sure.
AKA someone's basement somewhere. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.